I'm Vishal Krishna, your business editor, and welcome to the first episode of Digirupt Finance, conversations around digital innovations in Fintech, hosted by Comviva in association with Your Story. Comviva is among the leading mobility solution providers in the country and cater to over 2 billion users globally. Through Digirupt Finance, we bring together global Fintech leaders to discuss how we could navigate through the future of Fintech. Today, we are kickstarting the first episode by decoding the world of digital wallets and their role in boosting a digital economy. Let me set the context, right? India's push towards cashless payments accelerated in 2019, and it has only grown as the COVID-19 pandemic dramatically diverted focus away from cash transactions to real-time and digital payments. According to a recently released report by ACI Worldwide, India retained the top spot with 25.5 billion real-time payment transactions in 2020. It was only followed by China with 15.7 billion transactions. That's something really heavy, right? By 2025, digital payments in India are expected to comprise 71.7% of all transactions. But the question is, how are digital wallets going to shape the future of a digital economy in India? To help us get to know the bigger picture, we have with us our esteemed panel. I'm going to make an introduction to them. We've got Eddie Chibi, CEO of Cassava Smart Tech Zimbabwe, that houses the mobility money business EcoCash. It's a microinsurance EcoShore product, and it offers e-commerce too. Eddie has over 21 years experience in telecom, ISP, and mobile financial services. He was instrumental in the launch of mobile money in Burundi in 2010 before being reassigned to Zimbabwe to drive the growth of mobile money in Zimbabwe's market. He is passionate about mobile-based innovation with a positive transformational impact on people's lives. We have with us Hernando Rubio, founder and CEO of Movie Colombia. It's a company that was born to completely disrupt the banking world and to make financial inclusion a reality. He's a serial entrepreneur with a track record in bringing early-stage technology products and transforming them into projects. Hernando has worked with more than 19 companies over the last 15 years. His mission is to inspire millions of young people to change the world with the power of ideas and technology. We also have with us Sharat Chandra, CIO of Airtel Payments Bank India, and also a member of the executive committee of the bank. As CIO, Sharat drives digital innovation and transformation of products and services. He brings in close to 2 decades of work experience and has worked with tech giants like Google, Amazon, and Yahoo. In the past, Sharat has also worked as an agile coach and has been an entrepreneur with this venture in the tech space for a while now. And finally, we have with us Srinivas Nidugandi, who is the CEO of Digital Financial Solutions at Comviva. Srinivas has over 17 years of experience in various industries, including financial services, payments, and commerce, and most recently with a specific focus on enabling banking, payments, and related services through digital channels. Prior to joining Mahindra Comviva, he established and led the business for online banking and mobile payments at ICICI Bank, and has also worked with startups and IT product companies. Gentlemen, how are you? Welcome to the show. How are you? All well? Thumbs up? Firstly, a quick word of note. All of us have got past this pandemic. We are still fighting it. It's a very tough time for people all over the world. But the good thing is, digital transformation in terms of digital payments has become real. So I want to spend the first few minutes talking about the overall scenario in this segment, right? I want to start off with Srini. Perhaps you could set the context on where digital payments is heading worldwide. Then I'd want to go into the specific markets and each of their experience. Over to you, Srini.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Vishal, for the introduction. Thank you. It actually made me feel a little young. I just have a little over 2 decades now, but 17 years is not bad. Happy to be feeling a little young. In the context of wallets, it's interesting, right? I mean, the concept or definition of a wallet could be different depending on which market we are in. And thankfully, we have real executives from different markets, and we're going to hear from them. But if I were to look at the perspectives, the first thing, as per Juniper, I'm told now there are something like 2.6 billion wallet users across the globe. That's like 1 in 3 persons in the world now is a wallet user. That's phenomenal. And I'm told that by 2025, that will be something like 4.5 billion, making it over 1 in 2 people now are going to be a wallet user. That itself clearly means, with the data points that you just gave, wallets are going to play a significant role, especially in the context of retail payments, and that's pretty much of interest. Retail, small businesses payments, and that's really of big interest to all of us. But what do wallets mean, in a sense? And if I were to actually first go to, and probably I don't want to steal too much of a thunder from Eddie, but I'll start off from where it's pretty much been the melting pot of wallets, what's called mobile money. It's really disrupted and brought the bottom of the pyramid population into the organized financial services world. So when you mean wallets, it really means people are getting accounts by which they can store money securely, safely, which itself was a huge problem, all the way to sending money back home efficiently, no cuts, no loss of transmission, instant. And today, and I won't be exaggerating when I make the statement, that across Africa, wherever you go, from cradle to grave, you can make for payments for every service. And that's a phenomenal thing. But more importantly, if we were to look at the Africa context again, what is called the United Nations, the Sustainable Development Goals, it's really made a difference of bringing people to change their lives in many ways. And I'm not going to get into too much of specifics there. So that's the African context. That's also the context in a lot of the LDC or the least developed countries, so to say, where for the first time people have got access to financial services. And how have they got it? The common denominator is the mobile phone. And that's the way we kind of see. So I was saying, if I were to move to the other spectrum, look at India, look at Southeast Asian countries, digital wallets are really being used. It began by, the millennials who don't really have a bank account. And there, a wallet really, not just is a prepaid account, but also you can kind of store your credit cards, debit cards, the UPI accounts now, and you can ensure that you seamlessly make for transactions. So it's really about different markets. And similarly, finally, before Hernando can come in, look at LATAM again. It's got a phenomenal mix of really evolved users. And for example, in Argentina, we're working with a customer where they're actually going to give an option to customers saying that you want to pay with your wallet, as in the prepaid account, or your credit card. The ability for different segments of the population, the mobile being the common denominator, is really making a disruption world over.
Now I want to bring in Hernando. Hernando, the key word that Srini used was access. And, so how do you see, the growth, evolution, and penetration of digital wallets from a Colombia perspective, a LATAM perspective? What services are more popular? How is this entire digital wallet market shaping up today in Colombia?
I think it's changing a lot. As a guy from Latin America, we're used to go to study in the US or Europe and then come to implement what we understand. It's the most reasonable thing to do. But in our case, in this case, I'm happy to say that it wasn't the case, no? If you want to see disruption, if you want to see innovation, you should go to Asia, you should go to Africa. There's a lot of things that we learned from Africa and from Asia, how you guys are doing things. And for the last couple of years, Latin America has been exploding as well in terms of access to financial services. Because, if you take a look to the whole world, there's like 196 countries. 25% of them, 25 of them are developed markets, but the rest of us, it's us. No, we are emerging markets. We are the normal ones. They are the weird ones. And the normal ones means that 90% of transactions still in cash, that there are just a few points, a percentage of merchants that accept payments. And that means a great opportunity to do financial services. No? And when you take a look and you understand why still after 150 years of banks, only 90% of the population of that transaction is still made in cash, why is wrong in that, brothers? So you have to understand that the business model is not right. No? And now Absolutely. There's a big opportunity for different entrepreneurs to change that by using technology to democratize financial services. Not only having the benefit for you of doing it that, but the benefit of a society. No, we have the biggest percentage of inequality in the world. And one of the reasons of inequality is lack of financial services. So we can pretty much make a change. So what we're seeing here in Latin America, it's pretty much what is happening everywhere, in which a lot of the people, they don't use banks, they don't use the typical accounts. And now we have a very good penetration of internet, very good penetration of digital smartphones.
Okay.
For example, in Colombia, where 50 million people and 40 million people have WhatsApp, 38 million people have Facebook. So that means that rich and poor people, they already changed their habit towards digital ways, but they didn't change the possibility of doing payments on a digital economy. So what we're doing here, it's pretty much using technology to allow all those consumers to do payments. And that's changing the complete ecosystem. That's happening in Colombia. It's happening in Brazil. We have the biggest digital banking in the world, which is Nubank. We in Argentina, in pretty much all around the world. So it's happening as well here in Latam.
Hernando, quickly with you, you use the word democratize and Srini used the word access. I think democratizing access is a very important term here. And why do you think that's happened in Colombia? We talk about accountability of institutions. You mentioned banks are a 150-year-old business model. It does not keep up with ideas of younger people today. So where are we heading with payments? If you look at young people as a user base itself, the power of ideas can change young people. So where is this ecosystem evolving into? If you can give that insight, we can touch upon that later in the conversation. Quickly, Hernando.
I think that what we're doing here is not creating a new company. We're creating an industry. We're changing the business model, passing from using the typical ways in which banks offer their services, which is all technology, high costs, and a structure to be in a business model to be sustainable based on charging fees to consumer, to use technology, reduce cost, and most of our services are free for consumers, and we charge the providers, third parties, to be sustainable. So in that way, it's a completely different business model. And with that, you give access and you give better user experience. So people feel better treated and they feel it's better user experience. It's lower the fees or no fees. So it means democratization of financial services.
Absolutely. I want to come down to Zimbabwe now. And Eddie, EcoCash, massive success. I think about 88% or 90% of Zimbabwe uses EcoCash. If you could quickly tell us what's happening in that market, vis-a-vis Africa, what do the youth aspire for in terms of digital wallets? Where are the existing users coming from, and what do they think about EcoCash, and where do you see the growth coming from?
Thanks so much, Vishal, and thanks for bringing to this forum. When you're looking at the Zimbabwe context, 90% of the Zimbabwe's adult population use EcoCash, and you are also looking 85% of the volume of transactions at national level actually happen through our mobile platform, EcoCash. Where is this growth come from, and how do we manage to achieve that kind of growth? I think Srini earlier on mentioned the issue of the penetration of mobile phones. That is what anchored us activating a lot of these wallets into mobile phones. And then the other thing which we really did is to have ubiquitous agent network to facilitate access to facilitate registration. Typically, when you look at Africa and Zimbabwe in specific, you'll find that smartphone penetration is still below 50%. And therefore, we needed to make sure that to onboard everyone, we needed both USSD and other digital platforms. But beyond doing that, it is also about understanding the entire value chain. Where does cash change hands, and how do you substitute that with a digital wallet or with a mobile wallet? So it is looking at the manufacturer and say, how do they take their product to market? And at that point, wherever there's a transaction, how do you make sure that that transaction happens using a mobile wallet? So you create a digital ecosystem. But to create that digital ecosystem, you then need to say, do you compete with banks or you complement with banks? So we integrated to banks. We integrated all banks in the market so that people are able to move value from their bank account into the mobile wallet. We integrated with the remittance partners globally so that people are able to terminate their remittances into a mobile wallet. We made sure we integrated with payroll processing companies so that people can receive their salaries on a digital platform on their mobile phone. So we made sure that when that wallet is funded, what are the things which you then need to activate to make sure that they become or create a habit of them using the mobile phone on a daily basis. You then need to look at the spaza shop. You need to look at the tuck shop or corner shop and say, how do you make them part of the ecosystem? So we widened that ecosystem and trained it, but in the process, as you do that, you really need to build a strong brand. You need your brand equity. You need people to build trust. How do you build trust? You need them to try. How do you make them try? You need to incentivize them at the beginning. When you incentivize them, they've tested how it works. What is the next thing? People want an easy life. Simplify everything. Simplify the technology. Demystify it and make it as user-friendly as is possible so that when someone is using it, it almost becomes intuitive. How do you then deepen it into the business community? Where do people pay bills? How do you facilitate the payment of those bills using a mobile wallet? How do you actually make sure that the customer doesn't need to initiate it? How do you auto-debit a wallet to pay a bill to your city council, for example, to pay for the insurance premiums? So this is how we manage to deepen it. And right now, as we speak, we're sitting on 90% of the adult population. Whenever you get into a retail outlet in Zim, when you look at any payment option, the EcoCash is the primary one. But we also said, what do banks have in terms of infrastructure? Banks have already deployed point-of-sale infrastructure across. How do you make sure that you utilize that same infrastructure to drive payments? So we did integrations with banks' point-of-sale terminals to make sure that you can actually initiate your payment from a bank infrastructure and debiting mobile wallet. So we have developed those solutions and made sure that we deepen the acceptance of mobile money. If you were to ask me to say, what then is the next phase? Now that you have got the consumer bit, the next phase for me is how do you facilitate business-to-business transactions of a mobile wallet? How do you make sure that a business which, that small spaza shop at the corner, the mom and pop shop, when they've got value in their wallet, how do they reorder their stock using that same value? When you get those people on board, particularly when you look at Africa, Zimbabwe in particular, 60% of the market of GDP is still driven by the informal sector.
Yes.
If you do not take them on board, then you are missing a significant part of the economy. You're actually missing a significant part of the ecosystem. For us, for me, the exciting part is to say businesses have accepted it. Now we need to work with regulators to make sure that we accelerate that growth. The next thing for me, it is about how do you continue to bring convenience in the payment space? What is the role of super apps? What is it that we can pick in terms of how Alipay has done it, Gojek, what WeChat and so forth? You may not replicate what they've done as is, but I think there's certain things which we are picking there in terms of actually harvesting data at a single omni-channel, and that data is what is going to actually inform the next phase of growth.
That's true. I agree with you. And Sharat, I think the three gentlemen have spoken very well. I mean, Srini said access, Fernando said democratize everything, and Eddie is talking about convenience. And central to this is data and how you use data with great user experience and disrupt business models, right? If you look at India, I mean, and I'm sure a lot of the watchers today would appreciate it is actually 20 times Colombia and it's about 100 times Zimbabwe in size. Then the scale of it must be very difficult. I want Srini to come in after Sharat's comments, talk about what are the rails in each of these markets. How do the rails and the technology work? What is the underlying infrastructure? But Sharat, from your experience, India has leapfrogged so many things, right? And some of us don't even remember USSD, but perhaps it'd be nice to talk about where did this payments and wallets evolve into? Where did it begin and where is it now in India and where are we going?
Sure. Thanks, Vishal. Thanks, everyone. I think very, very valid points spoken by all the participants. I think the way I look at it is in the evolution, there was banks who were providing branch-based services. You had to go to a bank. It was cumbersome to open a bank account, do whatever. And the reach is what was the key problem. And I think that's where a lot of the African models around wallets and other these things, instruments, was amazingly powerful because they were telcos which were able to reach a customer much closer than or very, very remote locations where a bank would not be able to reach. I think that seems to be the bottom line of it, right? If a bank cannot reach, there is a telco who can reach it, and hence a telco and a wallet provider became a very powerful way in which customers could start having something that can store value, something that can enable transactions on top of it, and also provide data that will enable financial data to be leveraged for financial services and other distribution. I think that is how the last decade or so has been in terms of innovation on reach and innovation on simple product that can be onboarded quickly for quick usage and convenient usage. So I think I cannot deny with Hernando or Eddie or Srini in that context. And that's been what it is. I think in India, the regulator RBI, I think, has done an amazing job, and I have a lot of respect for them for that. In India, we have had a challenge of financial services and stuff like that, deeply going into deep rural. And India has definitely leapfrogged. I think JAM, the whole Jan Dhan accounts, Aadhaar and mobile, definitely created enough stepping stones for various companies to reach the nook and corner of India. And it is very true, even now, in Airtel Payment Bank and other payment banks that we have, right? We know of places and villages where the nearest bank branch is almost about 10 kilometers away, but there is a retail store where a telco service is being offered within half a kilometer or a kilometer.
Correct.
It is reality even now. And that's where the payment banks are able to leverage this distribution and provide services very close to this thing. So I still think the rails are similar. It is about convenience. It is about reach. And it is also about safety and ease of use, very clearly. I think this is where JAM as this thing from the government and RBI looked at it and said, branch-based banking is not a model that can achieve financial inclusion at the scale that we want to achieve. And hence, mobile-based services through payment bank licenses and others are very, very proactive and innovative. Look at it, right? It has been 5 years since the government and the regulator had allowed for payment banks. And the proof is in the eating the pudding. Every one of the payment bank now is operating at scale, getting profitable, and the number of services that are being offered in India through these kind of services, completely digital and mobile-based services, is humongous. There are at least 100 million or more customers across various payment banks who are reaching out and getting these services. The way I look at it is ease and simplification and ease of creation of an account to start with. Then safety of transactions, I think that's the other thing that is extremely critical. And we know that data consumption has definitely increased across the world, especially even in deep rural India. We know that everybody uses a YouTube or some other OTT channel, even in deep rural India, on a small smartphone. People are getting used to using these. Can we actually, so the challenge that I look at is from a customer experience perspective, can we build a system that is as easy as consuming video content to do transactions? And I think our audiences, the populace, are very intelligent to be able to pick up things that work well and use them in very, very innovative ways. So I think that's where it is all going. One last thing about digital wallets. I think the direction that we're going in, at least with RBI's this thing, and innovations in payments like UPI and others, one of the key things is the stored value instrument. It doesn't matter anymore, at least in India. Whether it is a wallet or whether it is a bank account which is associated with your mobile number, the transaction is going to happen on a mobile. The transaction is going to be safe, and it provides the customer with enough this thing to be able to send money to anybody, anywhere across the country. And I think that innovation in regulation and in terms of businesses like us who are building these is extremely powerful. And I think there are two aspects that are critical. We need to start thinking about this stored value instrument, whether it is a wallet or this. I think in the past, there would have been companies which would have thought about these as the main products that they're offering. I think the stored value instrument being a product is no longer the reality. It doesn't matter. It is important for us now to start thinking about us being a platform company. The platform thinking, the evolution of a bank or a digital service provider in payments, from being a product thinking company to a platform company and saying, hey, this is a platform that we are enabling. We open up all of our APIs. We let partners come in. We want partners who have the right kind of capabilities and who are serving customers in niches to be able to integrate with us, get onto that, and be able to deliver services. We cannot do everything. It's very clear. But we, at the scale that we're operating, we want to be platform thinkers. And our last thing is access channels. This is not restricted to access channels of, let's say, only web or bank brands. The access channels can be humongously innovative as we go ahead. And I believe that there will be many, many access channels that will come up. Mobile is not going to be the only, when we say mobile, right? Mobile banking is not going to be the only way that people will access their instruments. There could be a third party who provides a mobile application or an experience through whatever medium to be able to connect to this core platform component of my stored value and use it in very, very innovative ways. I think with IoT coming in, farmers using IoT in a lot of their situations, it can lead to amazing possibilities. I think at least in India, what the regulators have pushed all of us in the direction of, and what innovations that industry is doing, at least the BFSI industry in India, is extremely encouraging and very proud of it, right? I think the possibilities are going to be
endless. And Srini, a quick comment on these endless possibilities. You know, Hernando, the power of ideas can change a country like Colombia or Latin America continent. Eddie was talking about partnerships with, with vendors, merchants, bringing everyone on a common platform. And Sharat summed it up very nicely that it's an API economy. Anything is possible. Right? So we can leapfrog many legacy technologies, right? And therefore disruption, the name of the game, right? You want to talk about this leapfrog is happening fast and it's happening as of now. And it's going to change the world completely. It'll be a very transparent ecosystem. At least I believe it's going to be a transparent ecosystem. It's going to challenge a lot of national, international governments because it's globalization in a real way. If you look at UPI, it's truly democratized India in many ways. Right, Srini? Go on, Srini. Over to you.
Yeah, and to your point, I was just looking at the statistics of UPI. We seem to have done something like 5 trillion rupees. That's approximately about $70 billion of money movement in March of this year. That's something like 2.5 times what it was last March. That's a significant, and COVID probably has helped in the digital evolution. So very clearly, what's happening? It's really about the whole economy. The cash component is coming down in the context of retail payments. So how do we facilitate? Probably if I can just take a small digression of the platform and the API economy that Shell talked about, and the question that you would ask earlier about what are the common rails? Yes. Probably the commonality, I think, is the platform. What started off in Brazil about accessing the financial inclusion where the supermarkets were allowed to be the touch points for cash in, cash out, became a business correspondent model in India, and other African countries, they kind of really adopted as the touch points. And Hernando runs that kind of an organization. So it's one part of it. So the commonality is about adapting and figuring out how best you could do. Similarly, if we were to kind of look at, Sharat talked about the SVA again, the stored value account. So be it the stored value or in the context of payments bank, it's actually a bank account. It's not a stored value account. In the context of Colombia, they actually have a 16-digit master Visa card. So the ability to kind of facilitate, and finally, again, talking about the channels, right? Be it USSD or mobile or wearable. So it's from mobile to mobility to digital. I think is where the transformation has really happened. So what next? It's really about saying, how more can I really bring in the ecosystem of sorts? The ecosystem of merchants, the ecosystem of consumers, businesses, so the transactions can become that much more seamless. We keep talking about things like the super app. Yeah. What does it really mean? It's really saying that how easy can I make for the consumer or the business, for that matter, of acceptance or paying, and ensuring that the whole choice becomes that much easier. So we clearly, what was probably a distant dream a couple of years back, across the globe, I clearly see this aspect about call it whatever, but super app seems to be a term that people can relate to. It's really about facilitating payments in a much easier way. Of course, with the smartphone transition happening, the ability to do that is going to be that much easier. So I clearly see that to be the next wave happening, and all the digital players, digital wallet players, seem to be getting onto that bandwagon. That's one part. Probably just a quick closure on the other aspect is saying, how do I focus on the overall financial services life cycle of consumers or businesses? So one part is ability to put money and pay, but people need loans, people need insurances, people can also want to kind of go to the next level of ability to kind of save and grow their money. Are there possibilities there? So I think the whole ecosystem is really going to foster is the way I would look at it.
You know, I want to bring back Hernando. Hernando, I mean, now that everyone has established the fact that the smartphone is growing, right? From the LATAM Colombia perspective, what are some of the challenges? Regulation is very important. I think one, the smartphone, very disruptive because it involves bringing in multiple partners, multiple apps. Like Srini just said, you know, it perhaps can be a super app too. So what is going to happen? I mean, you're going to have co-branded loans. We're going to have co-branded insurance, where the smartphone and Move will probably perhaps look at the full life cycle of the customer payments. You know, and how is it going to disrupt the banking ecosystem? So two things: regulation, banking. Younger people, how are they going to consume the smartphone? It's something I want to throw at Eddie and you. Hernando, you can go first, please. Hernando, please go first, please. Pardon me.
I mean, when you talk about the reason why we do what we do, it's allowing consumers and merchants to pay or be paid in a digital way independently on their social economic level, no? So we want everyone to have that capacity, merchants and consumers. And then if we add what Sarat was trying to say about we need to transform from being a provider of a wallet service to a platform, because we need to put a lot of other services, remittances, loans, insurance. It sounds like a very difficult task to do, no? No? It sounds like the vision of Amazon, like selling 100% of things to 100% of the people in the world. So it seems to be quite difficult, but it's the journey that we have to follow. That's why it's so important to start believing and thinking as a platform and to open APIs to start working with everyone. I mean, if we are the ones putting the user experience in the hand of the people, allowing them to move their money the way that they want it to move, but we need partners and we need people to try new and different ways how to generate a loan, new people trying to generate insurances and allowing the people to choose. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have. I think that the regulation used to be a big barrier, but most of all the countries around the world, and specifically in Latin America, they are moving towards, they understand perfectly the opportunity that they have, the problem that they used to have in terms of lack of financial services for many people. And now they understand the possibility that we have as a society with technology to democratize financial services. So they're changing the regulation towards pushing new companies, technology-based companies to enter into the field of offering financial services because they know that they need it, no? And they know the benefit that will create of that. Of course, without allowing people to make stupid things like stealing money from people and all that stuff, protecting the consumer. Of course, they have to do it, but they are bringing new competitors. And I always like to say, one of the phrases that I always like to use is that you run as fast as the dog that is pursuing you, no? That is chasing you. And they are bringing more dogs to generate more competition. And the benefit, the one who will be at the benefit of this is going to be the user. So definitely, yes, we are in a sexy trend. Everyone will have to use a digital wallet, but it's not going to be easy, the journey, because we have to do many things in order to know the segment, know the people, know their needs, and be capable to provide the solution for the needs that they have.
You know, one thing on Movie I liked is, I mean, you also say that there is no maintenance fee, there are no interest rates or hidden charges, right? You talk about complete transparency. One of the facts of the modern digital payment world is transparency, right? How appreciative are people in terms of Colombia, cash movements? When will that change? How much of the economy still runs on cash, and how is that changing?
No, I mean, economy still runs in cash. Almost 85% of the transactions still in cash. It's huge from transaction, as the volume is roughly 60%. But the good part is that it's changing. I mean, as an entrepreneur, one of the things that I'm most afraid of, it's trying to fight against changing in the habit of the consumers, no? And the habit of people about paying in cash is huge. But fortunately, the technology has shown us that if you use technology with the correct strategy, you can change habits very fast. Otherwise, things how you socialize or communicate 5 years ago. WhatsApp and Facebook changed the way we socialize and how we communicate in rich and poor people in a couple of years. So I think that if we use it properly, we can change the way that people are making payments, as Eddie is doing in Zimbabwe, Sarat is doing in India, and many other players are doing it all around the world. I think that we have a good opportunity to change things.
No, phenomenal. And Eddie, perhaps you could talk about the challenges, compliance, regulations in Zimbabwe. How do you handle it? Currency movements, changes in currency in Africa, very common because of government control, right? How's the user behaving in this term? I mean, like you said, EcoCash is 90% of the Zimbabweans use it. And how do you guys actually fight regulation in this case?
Okay, thanks so much, Vishal. In fact, I would not use the word fight the regulator. In most instances, what tends to happen with technology across the world is that if you're innovative, most of the time you're a step ahead of the regulator.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
For us, the primary focus is to always ask ourselves one simple question. What problem are we solving? You ask yourself a couple of times, what problem are you solving? Even as an entrepreneur, ask yourself, what problem are you solving? The moment you have got a solution to a problem, then you've got everything that you need. In terms of engaging the regulator, everyone wants success. So you'll find in most instances, the same regulators who can give you the runaround are the ones who actually go out there and celebrate the success as themselves. So for us, our biggest challenge has been sometimes we're a lot more ahead of the regulator, and we have tended to then deploy certain things which they are not a bit comfortable with. I think you'll find a lot of regulators are trying to say, how do you regulate non-financial banking services sector? And they're coming up with that. So we believe we've weathered that. There are issues to do with, for example, security, KYC, ML issues, which we've all addressed actually. But it is a skepticism which actually doesn't even come with the regulators. Sometimes it's peer players in the industry who possibly have got traditional ways which they've deployed over 150 years, as Anando says, but now when they see something different, they're a bit uncomfortable until they start to embrace it. So those are some of the things which we have to face, but as entrepreneurs, for us, we always ask ourselves, as long as we're solving a problem, we're going to have to go. One of the things which we need to realize is the consumer we are serving today has got different demands. We are serving a digital consumer. We are serving a consumer whose habits in terms of education, whose habits in terms of entertainment, his habits in terms of communication, in terms of health, it's all app-driven, it's all digitally driven. And therefore, even the migration from the financial service sector is almost like just thinking things which they're already doing. So for us, that's the thing which have driven. We look at whatever we encounter with the regulator, current dynamics and so forth. We take it on as a challenge and we say to ourselves, yes, here's a challenge. What solution can we provide? So with the current fluctuations in Zim, we ended up most probably being the only mobile money operator with more than one wallet. So we've got one wallet which can transact in local currency, and we've got another wallet which can actually transact in US dollars. So those two can run concurrently, and we've then put in another digital bureau de change, where I can actually convert my US dollars or any other FX currency into local currency without having to physically move. So you are presented with that, but you're also presented with an opportunity to solve a challenge.
When would you see the app economy becoming strong in Zimbabwe? You were mentioning earlier that smartphone penetration is only about begin. Are you prepared for that?
We are prepared for that. One, look, the manufacturers of also smartphones, they're making it a lot more affordable.
Yeah.
The MNOs are on a drive to make sure that they drive data consumption. And we most probably are the biggest beneficiaries of all those things which are happening. So for us, it is about positioning ourselves and making sure that this digital consumer embraces digital wallets and are able to use them a lot more effectively. So we not just need to say to ourselves, let us continue to innovate. And as I look at it ourselves, I was looking at Amazon, for example, the phenomenal growth they experienced during the pandemic. My next challenge is to say, how do I then make a mobile wallet be able to pay on Amazon and get everything delivered? How do I facilitate international payments? How do I see something on a website in Colombia and I'm able to pay for it online off my mobile wallet here? We need to make sure that the transactions go beyond, the national geographies and really become, global, payment systems anchored on a digital wallet.
Phenomenally said. For me, what interests me now is with different markets that we've covered, India is a combination of Colombia and Zimbabwe in many ways. And then we have an entire ecosystem that has leapfrogged certain technologies. For example, QR codes, UPI, WhatsApp-based payments are coming. Obviously, Google payments are very big, or the NPCI payments under which UPI comes in too. Sharath, I want you to talk about the challenges within the Indian ecosystem itself, right? There are several Indias that still doesn't have access to finance. You mentioned that only smartphones or phones can change that. Smartphone penetration is going to go about 500 million this year. It's going to really increase the internet penetration. Probably internet penetration is going to 1 billion users or something of that sort. The challenges there are, for me, I think the security question becomes very important. Right? The security has to be robust. And I see a phygital world emerging where a combination of a local store, a local bank, several vendors can become banks themselves. And that's what Airtel Payments Bank wants to bet on, perhaps.
Absolutely, Vishal. The way we look at it is there's no one solution that can solve such a large audience. Yeah. 1.3 billion people in about 6 lakh villages, 600,000 villages is not going to work with one kind of solution. So for deep rural, for example, we are very, very gung-ho that a local entrepreneur providing telco services or maybe who is a merchant, they being able to be enabled for digital payments, but for enabling bank accounts being opened and being a local bank correspondent for all the village around there is a very, very powerful proposition. One, it helps this local entrepreneur earn more money and hence a livelihood. Second, it is convenience for the customers because these villagers, they can go to this person who is within a kilometer distance rather than a 10 kilometer away bank branch. I think Eddie or Hernando called out, it is also about respect. This person, a local small villager who doesn't have enough money with him, going to a bank branch, the treatment they get can be sometimes not very optimal, but a local Kirana store owner is going to treat him because there is that trust relationship between them because of other engagements that they have. So a phygital this thing with an assisted model is something that is going to be extremely powerful, and this will be the first stepping stone to give the customers, at least the first time digital customers, a sort of easy step up into trusting digital transactions because we are doing this all digital. Hence, the nearby retailer is actually just using a mobile phone to provide these services, whether it is bill payments. India has this very powerful Bharat Bill Pay ecosystem, extremely powerful where any kind of bills can be paid. We have something that's called a cash management system where people can pay their EMIs, their premiums, all from a nearby local merchant store. So I think phygital does have a very, very key role in providing that first step up for people to get digital. Okay. We now use these local entrepreneurs to merchants and others to actually provide financial services too. Insurances. There's so many insurance products that the government is providing, which are very safe. And being able to distribute them at this kind of scale needs these phygital local entrepreneurs to be able to do that. And now, whether it is APY, which is a pension scheme, or other insurance schemes that the government offers, we find that there's a lot of uptake of those because there's a local entrepreneur who I, as a villager, can trust. I go there, he gives me a very sachet-sized insurance product and so on and so forth. For us, as a bank, we feel very proud that of the 6 lakh villages, we have coverage of at least 120,000, this thing, which is almost about 1/5 of Indian villages. That I think is a distribution scale. We have to invest in this way. Telcos are providing that. FMCGs are going to provide that. They have a relatively similar kind of scale. And that is for the bottom of the pyramid. And for the digital, the young guys, for the digital, it's about, so while for the bottom of the pyramid it's about reach, I think for the digital customers, who are young customers who have at least a small smartphone, not a high-end smartphone, but a small smartphone, and all the way to the high-end consumers, it is about experience. If I can get a very simple experience, which is safe on my mobile phone, I'm going to go digital with that particular service provider, right? I think safety in the digital listing is the other thing that is extremely important. I think RBI and the regular government and the RBI in that context are very clear that the most important thing is customer trust. And hence, there's a lot of this thing about UPI for as a platform being very safe to do transactions. It is based on your this thing. There's a lot of incentive and push from RBI to ensure that digital platforms are safe. A lot of focus on cybersecurity, their rules and these things which push all the banks on their mobile banking applications to be building secure applications. These, I think, are the right things RBI is pushing for, because if the audience loses confidence or trust because it is an insecure platform, the whole industry sort of starts going down. So I think the mind is in the right place and the intent is in the right place with the government and the regulator. And I think all of us in the industry are very excited that what we can do with this is extremely possible. And being able to deliver to 1.2 billion customers is huge.
Do you think we'll go cashless and cardless? Do you think card also will become a digital card rather than a physical card being carried out? And Hernando, you could also answer this. Eddie, you can also answer this. Credit card penetration. Do you think people will carry cards on the phone or cards in the physical wallet like this one?
I would believe that people will feel more and more comfortable with a digital card, but I think there is a journey too. See, we believe, at least at the Airtel Payments Bank, we believe we only provide a virtual debit card. And a lot of our customers do use it. Yes. Sometimes we do get requests saying there should be a physicality to it. There is some reality to expecting a physical card, but maybe we will find innovative ways of solving that over a period of time.
Okay, Srini, you want to add? And Ananda, you could bring in the credit card as a digital card, and Eddie, you should also bring in. Srini, quickly, you want to say something? Go on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very interesting point that you brought in. I think all of them are going to coexist. Cash for sure is going to come down. That I think is a done thing. It's a question of time. But to your point on cards, I believe the digitization of cards through what's called NFC, HCE is happening. The adoption curve is a little slow, but I believe it is for sure going to happen. We know, for example, in India, State Bank of India, ICICI, IDFC, they already have started off. So I can actually tap my phone against a POS device, like a contactless smart card, and you can end up paying. And it's like actually a physical card being present. So I believe it is going to happen. But my belief is QR codes are going to be as prevalent. So horses for courses. If you go and go to a small tea shop, you're going to use the QR code. But if you go to a supermarket, probably you could end up using the contactless card on your phone. So I think it's horses for courses, but all of them are going to thrive.
So Ananda, your thoughts, Colombia, quickly on the card side. Are they all digital cards? Eddie, this question is also for you. Where is this card ecosystem evolving in terms of payments?
We offer our users the possibility to have a digital card or a physical card. And of course, the acceptance of a physical card is still important because people know how to do it. And they're moving towards NFC, and it's going really good. To answer your question, I don't think it's a matter of what is going to be the device, whether the card, the digital card, or the phone. I think that's the future will show us which is going to be the trend. I think that the biggest challenge is how to change the business model to make it more scalable. I think that's the biggest concern, no? Because today, if you ask any owner of a mom and pop store why they don't accept cards as a way of payments, it's because it's expensive, it's difficult to have a POS, it's expensive, and they don't receive the money immediately. So I think that that's need to be changed. So what is going to be changed is the fees, the way how to receive the POSs or the possibility of accepting payments in order to be it easier, better user experience, and cheaper for merchants and for consumers.
Heidi, how do you make that, like to Hernando's point, he's absolutely right. The mom and pop stores, there must be many in Zimbabwe, they can't afford a POS, right? And how do they, let's talk, we've spoken about it from the consumer angle a lot now. How do you think the ecosystem of partners it has to be profitable for everybody. It has to be a win-win. How do you see this mom and pop, shops react to these technologies in Zimbabwe?
No, thanks so much. I was going to possibly touch on the card itself and say, in the case of Zim, most probably we started with a virtual card, and therefore the virtual card will most probably continue to be a lot more dominant, simply because when we started mobile money business in Zim, that's about a decade ago, the banking penetration was less than 10%. And therefore, the population which actually got debit cards and credit cards was also less than 10%. Here we are a decade down the line, you have got 90% of the adult population actually using virtual cards with our digital. So when you look at the mom and pop shop by the corner, what we have managed to do is to say we've made them realize the value of using mobile money. But the way we made them realize is to say when they've got value which is in their merchant wallet, and their merchant wallet is we also decided to say their merchant wallet itself can be in a feature phone, right? And not necessarily a smartphone. They accumulate value there. And then you are giving them an option to say, should they want to liquidate? They can auto-liquidate into the bank account of their choice. So you integrate that merchant wallet to a banking institute so that you can facilitate their own payments. Secondly, you also link that to another service provider so that they're able to do a merchant-to-merchant transaction, which becomes a business-to-business transaction. I believe the growth, particularly in third world, particularly when you look at Africa-wide, it is about making sure that you deploy solutions which are relevant for the SME segment, which is the small and medium enterprise segment, and get them to embrace technology. The way you make them embrace it is to make sure that it is affordable for them. To Hernando's point, don't make it expensive for them to be able to be paying merchant services fees and so forth. If anything, zero rated. And make sure that you make your money elsewhere and make it viable for yourself as a business, and also facilitate the growth of their own business. Okay. They see value immediately, because the moment they've got critical mass in terms of people who have got mobile wallets, it also means that they see value in accepting payments from there. And then you facilitate their business growth. In our case, we've got an advantage in that we also own a digital bank, and we then do credit scoring for these small merchants. And with that algorithm which we have developed, we actually know how much payments they're receiving from mobile wallets or digital wallets. We therefore can actually vet them and be able to extend the facility.
Working capital. You can extend working capital.
Working capital. So there's a lot of opportunities then, which I would say anyone who would want to get in that space to accelerate that growth, facilitate those micro loans, facilitate the working capital arrangements, or any other facility for that matter. We spoke about micro insurance. We launched a micro insurance product, which is, where premiums are as low as 50 cents. And right now we cover about 3 million lives of these about 16 million people. And it continues to grow simply because identify a problem and know what problem you are solving.
Okay, phenomenal. Guys, I think we've got time for a lot of audience questions have come in, and I want to start off with Sharat. Sharat, you said you work in there's an anonymous question, it says you work with 120,000 villages, right? When you're talking about digital economy, digital transformation, digital payments, what is the security for the merchant and the consumer? How is that going to be looked at? Because digital fraud is becoming a big thing. Digital theft is becoming big. How do you want to ensure protection for consumers and merchants? Because the anonymous attendee says, anyway, the big players get away with it, but what about the common people? I knew this would come in. Eddie, you could take it. Hernando, Srini, you can take this too in terms of your markets, in terms of security. I'll pass it on. Quickly, Sharat.
I think from a security perspective, I had mentioned, right, the regulator has a very clear view that customer trust and customer security is extremely strong. And we, even as a industry, I and everybody else in the industry, spend a lot of time ensuring that our products are really safe. Now, the first thing to look at is customer protection. So let's say there's a transaction that happened. We do have across the industry, there are a lot of phishing attacks and stuff like that happens. And I think what we observed was, as a bank which allows accounts to be opened very quickly, the wallets and payment bank accounts started becoming a very strong thing of conduit frauds, meaning that somebody, gullible customer of some other bank or some other instrument provider, is put through a phishing attack, and unintentionally they lose that money, and then that money is brought to us as a conduit and taken it out very quickly. This has been a big problem that we had focused on over the last year and a half. Now the amount of conduit fraud that happens through us is very low. We catch it right there, and there are a lot of machine learning and other algorithms that we use to ensure that we are not becoming part of a conduit fraud. Also, for our own customers, we've launched a few months back a product called Airtel Safe Pay. The idea there being that even in case our customer has gone through a fraudulent phishing call, there is a third factor that is available on the device where the customer has, where we as a bank are providing an extra notification and this thing saying, do you really want to go through a debit? We've seen a lot of frauds where on various platforms like OLX and others, people have defrauded people saying it is a collect request, whereas it is actually a pay request and stuff.
Correct.
So we've looked at this very, very critically, and I know that RBI has a very strong focus on fraud as a focus area. We spend a lot of time with them to discuss what kind of frauds are happening. Our risk teams spend a lot of time figuring out how we can solve it, and we as a technology team invest in a lot of artificial intelligence and other technologies to reduce that.
Okay.
So customer fraud is extremely critical.
It is critical. So merchant fraud happens too?
We don't see much of that because at least in India, and we provide a UPI-based this thing. It's an open loop. There, the biggest this thing that we look for is how quickly can we do settlements for the merchants, ensure that the merchant is clear that the money is actually going to come into their account safely, and building the trust there. I think that's how we look at it.
Okay. Hernando, before Srini can sum up the security part of it, Hernando, how financial frauds we're not new to. It's perhaps that's one thing that mankind gets along with. They're very clever. People are very clever in figuring out the mistakes in the system. How do frauds, financial frauds happen from a digital ecosystem in Colombia, and how are you fighting it?
I mean, fraud, it's the name of the game right now. No, simple as that. And we need to have the major protection securities that we can have in order to keep the trust from our consumers to us. No, and I don't think it's only just a monitor system to using artificial intelligence to prevent fraud by understanding the transactions of people, but also, for example, authentication. It's a nightmare for opening new accounts. No, there's a lot of different tools and new ways in order to make sure that you are the one who you say you are. But still, the more you grow your KYC requirements, the less the user experience is coming. So if you increase risk solutions, you are decreasing your funnel of conversion. So I know that in the audience, there is a lot of entrepreneurs thinking out in what area that can get involved. I think that definitely authentication, cybersecurity, it's one of the areas that will need the most of the most clever people around the world getting into it, because now in the old days, the thieves go to the banks, to the branches to steal the money. Now they're going to digital banks to steal the money. So there's a huge opportunity there for people to start making startups.
That's fantastic. Eddie, in your case in Zimbabwe, what's being done from an EcoCash perspective?
Thanks so much, Vishal. For us, other than having the usual fraud management system, consumer education, working with the law enforcement agents, is also building strong relationship with your vendors, so that the deployments which they've done in other markets as well, you continue to learn from that and leverage on the experience and expertise globally. But I would say this is an area which you cannot say you've arrived. It's an area which requires constant and regular investment, both in terms of people and as well as in terms of making sure that you've got the right tools to be monitoring all the things, because you'll find with cybercrime and all these other things, they always start to stay ahead of the pack. So in most instances, you have to play catch up and make sure that you deploy preventative measures. But as of now, statistically, it's not a major issue because we have not had a lot of these. You would find most of them which actually happen are those which actually happen outside of the system, where someone most probably is convinced to releasing their PIN and someone has got access to their wallet and so forth. Those really you can only combat through consumer education and not from a system perspective.
Okay, got it. Srinivas, you want to sum the security part of it, because there's 8 other questions. We're running short of time. I'm trying to get all your questions answered. Go on, Srini. You can sum up the security thing.
Yeah.
Go on.
So I would look at security into 3 parts, right? One is technology, one is process, third is people. So technology is where you're really trying to bring in the firewalls. We keep hearing about data being stolen. How do you secure through firewalls, etc.? How do you encrypt data when it's moving from the digital device to the back end? So those are very important. I think there's a lot of effort that's going on there. The second is process. So process, how much ever good technology is, if the processes are not right, simple thing, if I forget a PIN and I send to the same place where I've kind of asked from, what I call the out-of-band authentication, if it's not there, there could be a problem. Hannah briefly talked about how do I know whom have I onboarded? So what are the processes around that? But most important, I think the weakest link are the people. After all what I've said in the processes, if I were to give a card parlance, if I put my PIN at the back of the card, what's the point of all the stuff that I do? So the customer education, I think, is as important. So I think we have to combat it across these 3 levels. And fraud is only going to increase, efforts are going to increase, fraudsters are going to get that much more smarter. So we have to get smarter. But these 3 pillars is what we need to really tackle on.
Okay. The next question is from Manish, and I think it's a question from Arnando and maybe Eddie. He wants to start a lending business in either Africa or in LATAM. If he ever starts in these markets, what would be the percentage of people who really pay? What are the NPAs what are the NPAs like, or the non-performing assets like in these countries? Are they great markets to start, and what would you advise him to do?
I think that Latin America is a great place for doing it. Actually, the best place in the world to do a digital lending is Brazil, because existing banks are offering 280% interest rate per year. They are extremely rich, and they're making a lot of money. That's why you have several digital lenders making a lot of money in Brazil. So you have to go market by market. Brazil, it's great. Colombia, we have an interest cap of interest rate that you cannot charge more than X amount, which is roughly 25% per year. So it depends on the market. But I think that as an overall, it's a great opportunity to get into lending because there's no more than 20-25% of total population that receive loans from incumbents or regulated banks. The vast majority of the people receive loans from shark loans. So there's a huge opportunity as well to do that.
Okay, great. Eddie, Africa is a great place to start up for Indian entrepreneurs wanting to start lending business there.
Yes, it is. I would possibly caution to give a blanket answer across Africa. Yeah, because I think there's specific geographic markets where these ratios may not. If I were to look at Southern Africa in particular, in Zimbabwe, for example, our NPL is less than 5%. Why is a function of the algorithm which we have in terms of our credit scoring. This is algorithm which, when you look at the telco industry with airtime credit, they've perfected it, and in most markets it's under 3% when it comes to that. So you'll find, even when you look at the micro lending, which happens in Africa with MFIs, with the mobile money platforms, you're looking at less than 5%. What will be the next steps which one would need to take? You might just need to do a detailed research in terms of the targeted markets, look at the regulatory requirements in terms of interest rates to say, are they kept, are they regulated, is it anything that you can charge, and make sure that you've got a platform which actually does the appropriate scoring. For us, the good thing which we have done is we validate KYC details of every customer with the government database. They've allowed us connectivity to that. Therefore, it makes it a lot easier when you're actually extending these loans to be able to follow through and recover as well.
Okay, great.
But
Next,
it's a huge opportunity.
Okay.
Actually, yeah.
Okay, great. Guys, Manish, you can go start up in either LATAM or Africa. Great place for you. Sharat, there's a question for you, and Hernando, maybe to you too. You guys mentioned, apparently, this is from Rakesh. He says that, yes, all these POS machines in villages are very expensive. You know, the transaction charges are very high. What will bring a farmer onto new payment methods like a Google Pay or a Phone Pay or a Paytm or a Airtel Pay, Airtel app? You know, do you see that replacing these POS machines? Or should transaction charges are the ones that are apparently not pushing digital payments to farmers? Sharat, your thoughts on this? Hernando, your thoughts also, because you mentioned the current POS machines are expensive, right? How can you bring the transaction fees down? Sharat, perhaps you could take this.
There are two aspects to this,
Yes.
Vishal. The idea of a POS machine is not just about it being costly. Yes, it is costly. And there have been innovations in terms of smart POSs and all, which are growing. But there is another aspect of a POS machine, which is also about the creditworthiness of the merchant. Now, if the merchant is doing some X amount of business and the credit models to give the POS machine from credit models that the banks use to deliver the POS to the merchant and give them some credit are going to be something that are disconnected with the reality of this merchant, it's never going to work. So I believe that on one side, simpler, cheaper payment options like UPI and others are going to be much more adopted. We see UPI being adopted even in deep remote villages. The second is smart POSs are also something that we see in a lot of places because the cost of a smart POS is much lesser, and hence it is easier for a bank or for a third-party provider to deliver smart POSs in a much simpler manner. But even in smart POSs, what we see is dynamic UPI, QR codes and others rather than card payments as a very large transaction. We see merchants doing maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or less than 5 card-based transactions in a whole month. But it is either cash or now we're seeing a lot more of UPI coming in.
Okay.
So I think that's how I see adoption of POS and merchant enablement in remote locations.
Okay. Hernando, your thoughts on the POS and bringing transaction charges down?
I'm a strong believer of real-time payments. I think that what you guys did in India with UPI shows a way to that pretty much all around the people in the world are looking for. If you take a look to LATAM, you see the local UPI in Brazil, which is PIX, in Mexico, which is CODI, in Colombia, which is Transfilla. So I think that you open the way and a lot of countries are following their steps, and that's going to be a big change in terms of how merchants accept payments, and people can pay to much more variety of amount of merchants.
Okay, I'm going to take one last question, and then I'm going to ask Srini to sum up, and I'll say overall the vote of thanks, and we'll end the show because we're running out of time. This is a question from an entrepreneur called Huzefa Lokandwala, and he says, Fintech companies raise a lot of money, they get a lot of customers, but how does one create a profitable Fintech company? Okay, so Eddie, how does one run a profitable company? Over to you, and Hernando, you can take this as well. Sharat, you can add if you want to from a Airtel Payments Bank perspective, and then I'll ask Srini to summarize this whole thing in terms of the technology and the market opportunity. Eddie, go on.
No, thank you so much. I'll go first. I think for me, the most critical thing is this is a volume business, and therefore you need critical mass. That's number one, because it's very important. Should you not have critical mass, you're going to run perpetual losses. So you need critical mass. And number two, you need brand loyalty so that at least you can have repeat transactions on your platform. And then thirdly, you need to make sure that your value proposition is solid for people to continue to use your platform. And then when you've got all those things in place, it is about your charging model to say, what is your business model and how do you want to make money? Is it going to be from transaction fee income? Are you going to make your money from extending credit? What is it that you're going to be able to make money? So you have to look at all the facets of the business and say, these are the things which are going to make me make money. For you, obviously, to build critical mass, you need incentives for people to start using your platform. And for them to be able to use that even with the incentives, it is all about how do you build loyalty. It is about how you build your brand. So there are quite a number of things which you then need to look at before you look at the profitability of your business. Then you set your path in terms of what are the next steps which you need to do to make sure that that is realized.
Okay, Nanda, over to you quickly on the profitability aspect.
I think that that's a very important question, and we can spend a panel talking about that, because I think that all around the world we can see that there are neobanks or challenger banks or whatever you want to call it growing, but losing more money year by year. And that's not the name of the game. The name of the game is how to be sustainable. And of course, I agree with Eddie that if you are a guy like EcoCash in Zimbabwe and you have the massive critical mass and you have a brand, you can do it. But that will be disappointed towards all the entrepreneurs that are here, because it's very difficult to do what you guys did. So I think that there's other ways to do it, and you find a specific, and again, it's coming back to the basic of any digital project or entrepreneurship, which is find the need, understand the problem, and provide a solution in which you can be sustainable. I think that I'm seeing a couple of wallets in Europe, for example, that are making money through a P2M by payments real time, like for example Papara in Turkey. I'm also seeing companies or wallets that are making money, for example, buying and selling crypto, like Cash in the US. 90% of the money that they're doing is from there. I'm also seeing people in companies in countries such as Zimbabwe or in Argentina, in which they have a hyper devaluation, making a lot of money by allowing people to exchange the money and keep it safe in a different, not a local currency. So there are different points and pain points in your local market that if you understand it correctly and you find how technology can solve it, you can have scalability and sustainability.
And I hope to have you in a cryptocurrency talk, all of you again. That's another way, we can spend an entire panel discussing that. Sharat, your thoughts quickly?
I'm seeing this as two things from what Professor was asking. One, the large companies, we have created a platform. It needed a lot of investment, and they invested it. And they've gotten a lot of customers. And obviously, this is a volume game. It's a high volume, very thin margin game, very clearly, to create that, which is what it is for any internet company, right? The second thing is, if you want to start now and say, hey, I want to build a payments wallet solution, I think that game is already past. I don't think you need to build a new company to build a payments wallet. And I believe that very strongly. What I believe is the payment, at least in India, the wallet is not anymore the key aspect. Correct. And that's what I keep saying, right? It's not about building a wallet as a product. It is about understanding the customer need, see what the customer wants, and then scale it up. To scale up, you might have to put more investments, or you look at a platform, get onto that platform, and make sure that you're serving a niche customer problem with your solution, and hence get more and more customer engagement. The third one, maybe Haufeza is also, at least I'm interpreting it this way, because I've seen in the last 2-3 years, a lot of people saying the wallet business or even the payment bank business does not have a business model, so to say, of profitability. And I just want to call out that I'm very proud that a few of the payment banks are already profitable. I know that we are in the path of profitability with the context of large scale. And I think the business model definitely exists. And I believe that the industry is going to see some very big profitable companies in this space.
I'm glad you didn't say unicorns, and it is profitable companies that we want. Thank you so much for that. This is a lovely panel. Srini, this has been a wonderful panel, no? You should perhaps summarize where is this entire world heading towards, and like you said, a lot of entrepreneurs want to build on the rails of what Hernando has, what Eddie has, what Sharat has. I'm going to see super apps, more in-app payments maybe. right? It's going to be a phenomenal financial world out there with a lot of partnerships, right? And a lot of transparency also, and democratic, and it's convenient access, whatnot, and innovative too. Over to you, Srini.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing, right? Firstly, it's transcontinental and pretty much
Absolutely.
resonating the point that, and probably, as I said, thankfully for the world that we are living in, it's going to be digital first. So very clearly, the walletization probably is clearly happening. And again, it's up to people to define what wallet is, but I think it's clearly understood depending on whichever country or region they are in. So be it the financial inclusion, getting so many folks onboarded, or fantastic user experience, I think it's pretty much possible now. Most importantly, I believe, because you talked about the entrepreneurs, and probably I'll conclude with that. While we may say that, hey, how do I play? What can I kind of really? What opportunity for me as a startup? While wallet itself may be a huge thing, but there are a lot of use cases that could be specific that wallet providers would be partnering with specific players, be it insurance, be it something else. So it's really about figuring out those problem statements, the white spaces. And when I talked about that ecosystem of sorts, there are enough and more where there's still a problem that needs a great solution. So as long as we're able to identify, work with these wallet providers, I'm sure there's going to be a huge opportunity for entrepreneurs. But getting back in terms of where are we headed, as I said, it's really about getting to the cashlessness, if I may. And I see that happening. Things have really gone quite fast in the last 5-10 years. And I'm sure that when we look at 5 years hence, we'll really be surprised at the pace at which the whole digitalization has really gone forward.
You didn't use the word globalization. You said transcontinental. Perhaps that's the new term that we're going to use. And it's a fascinating term, right? And I'm glad that Eddie could join us, Hernando could join us, and Sharat, 2-3 different markets, similar markets, people who are aspiring to change the world, ideas can change the world. We want rule of law, accountability, great institutions. And, there are entrepreneurs like Eddie, Srini, and Hernando and Sharat who are bringing this financial change at your doorstep. Guys, if you're a fintech startup, banking professional, or an enthusiast looking to transform your business by 2025 and become a digital-first enterprise, stay tuned with your story and Comviva, because we're going to bring more of these gentlemen on board and discuss many more things. Like Hernando said, each of these topics is a big discussion, right? Crypto, mom and pop shops, right? And Sharat and farmers and payment, and Srini said the technology range. Each of it requires time, and we're going to bring that to you. So until then, stay safe, stay masked, and stay sanitized, and take care of your loved ones. Sharat, Hernando, Srinivas, Eddie, thank you so much, guys. Have a good one. Bye. And the audience, I love you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And
Bye-bye.
thanks, Vishal, for moderating.